Hey everyone, it's Lisa from the blog farmhouseonboone.com, and today I'm going to share something a little bit different. My top 10 tips for bloggers from a full-time blogger. So if you're brand new to my channel and you're stumbling upon this video, and you've never seen me before, we have a family of 8 and we support ourselves full-time with our blog. My husband quit his job about 2.5 years ago for us to pursue this. And so we have some experience in taking the idea for a blog into a full-blown business. The reason for me making this video right now is I launched a course exactly 2 years ago. So this is the 2-year anniversary celebration / relaunch of my course called Create Your Blog Dream. I've since helped over 1,000 students start their very own blogs. And to celebrate 2 years, I am launching a revamped version of my course. So I've updated several of the videos. I've added a 2021 content calendar and planner. I've even launched a bonus lesson. It's a photography lesson where I teach you exactly how to get the kind of photos that set blogs apart, how to get professional photos with a cheap camera. So that is a new and improved lesson that is on there. I'm actually switching over to an open and shut course model. So my course will only be available for the next 5 days, I believe, and then it's shutting. So I'm not exactly sure when I'm gonna open it back up, but I'm going to take in a certain number of students now and then close it down and focus there. So that is switching. So if you are ready to start a blog, now is the time to get my course. I also decided to do a live blogging masterclass. So I'm doing that tomorrow night. If you want to get in on that, I will be doing a live Q&A. I'm also going to give the opportunity during my live masterclass for a certain number of people to do a live coaching call with me. So if you're interested in checking that out as well, make sure to get in on my blogging masterclass. You can register for that at farmhouseonboone.com/masterclass-registration. And then I will send you the email tomorrow whenever we're about to start. You can jump on and either listen in or be an active participant and ask some questions. If there's anything you've been really wanting to know, I will be available to actually answer questions. I'm doing a 15-minute Q&A at the end, so make sure to get in on that. All right, so let me dive into my 10 tips I collected. So the first one is to not let perfectionism stop you. This is so common. It happens all the time. I meet people who really want to start a blog and they have ideas for a blog, and once they try to start thinking of the domain name or the brand colors, these doubts start to creep in and they feel like they need it all to be perfect before they can even start. This definitely happened to me. So I had an idea that I wanted to start a blog because at the time I had a little Etsy shop where I was sewing kids' clothes, and I thought if I had a blog, I could draw people in with content about sewing or maybe just kid things. I thought, if I can get people interested in other things, maybe then I could point them to my Etsy shop and get more sales. So I was gonna use my blog as a marketing strategy. So my Etsy shop at the time was called Ruthie Bell because I named it after my first child. When she was born, she was my only child, and this was gonna be my idea. And then whenever I decided to start my blog to promote that shop, I called it Ruthie Bell Home because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I thought, you know what, maybe if it's Ruthie Bell Home, I could write about home stuff and then point them back to my Etsy shop. The point is, the whole idea was not very well formed at the time. I had no clue what shape my blog would take. This was in December of 2015, so at the time of this video, almost 5 years ago. It was just an idea. Maybe I'll start a blog and I'll call it Ruthie Bell Home. Well, I bought that domain. I started building my website, and right away I felt like a lot of the ideas that I had didn't fit into that name. And then by January, I decided to name my blog after my street, which is one of my tips. It's not on here, but don't name it after your street name. We've since moved. So yes, I gave my address away on my first blog name. Don't do that. And call it Farmhouse on Boone, and felt that I could have more content under that name and it wouldn't be as constricting because I could just do whatever I wanted to do that pertained to my farmhouse or in my farmhouse. But I overthought so much. I just kept thinking, well, what if I want to write about this and this? And I just really analyzed it and worried about it. And it kept me from actually starting for a while, because I actually wanted to start a blog many years back. I even did start one on Blogger and it didn't go anywhere with it. I just completely fizzled out, overthought everything. So perfectionism really does stop people. I see it happening all the time, where someone has an idea and they just don't want to go forward and mess anything up. But the best thing to do, the best way to learn, is to try things, mess up, learn from those, and then adjust your plan along the way. And that's what I did. So for a while on Farmhouse on Boone, I was going to write about healthy recipes and home decor, kind of like exactly what I do right now. Well, then when I got on Instagram, I noticed that everybody was doing home decor, and it seemed like all the people who did home decor were growing. And so I shifted and did only decor. And I have some old blog posts that show where I say, well, and we made this food, and I don't want to write about it too much because I only do home decor. And so I was totally overthinking the whole thing. And I eventually came back to, I'm going to share about all things, from scratch, natural living, handmade. But I didn't go there originally, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I navigated the waters while I was in them, and that's how I like to operate. I do this with things on the homestead. We get them before we fully understand them, and we learn along the way. I find that experience is the best teacher. So don't be perfectionist, don't overthink it, just start, and the experience itself will teach you something. You will figure it all out as you go. My next tip is simply WordPress. When I started my blog, I started on WordPress. Actually, I started the first one on Blogger, but when I started my Ruthie Bell home blog, which eventually became Farmhouse on Boone, I started on WordPress, and I really struggled to make the website look pretty. And the reason was I was too cheap to buy a theme that would help me make it look pretty. So my logical solution to that was to jump ship over to Squarespace and use their beautiful out-of-the-box templates. So I blogged on Squarespace for a good year, and then I ended up at a blogging conference. This was already when my blog was getting fairly decent traffic about a year in, because I'd been posting consistently. And there was a teacher there on SEO, search engine optimization. Again, this was all something I learned a year into blogging, not overthinking it, learning along the way, because it can be really overwhelming all up front. And she said, "You're still on Squarespace? You can't be on Squarespace." And at first I was like, no, yes, you definitely can. I know lots of bloggers on Squarespace. Well, as I dug deeper, met more career bloggers, I found that all of the bloggers who were getting huge traffic and making money with blogging were not on Wix, they were not on Weebly, they were not on Blogger, they were on WordPress. And so I actually navigated over. And it was a huge process. I still have repercussions of that to this day. So I would recommend start on WordPress. Even if it feels difficult to figure out how to make your website, it's worth it. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I know I'm gonna probably get pushback from people on here, but I can tell you that I've met so many career bloggers. I surround myself with them because I can learn things from them. In any profession, that's what you do. You meet people who know a little bit more than you, and you learn. And I can tell you that successful bloggers use WordPress. It's fully customizable. You can do anything with it. So if you want to open a shop, if you want to focus on affiliate marketing, everything is available with WordPress. You can get site speed audits, and it's just worth it. All you need to know is be on WordPress, and you can figure out all of the reasons why later, because trust me, you'll learn them even if you don't realize it now. I get so many people who message me and ask me if my blog course could be for them because they have a blog on Squarespace or Wix, and I say, yes, it can be, because I go into way more things than just setting up the blog. I go through growing on social media and using a camera, getting great photos, keyword exploration, and how to get posts that are found. But I'm going to try to convince you to get on WordPress. So that is usually what I tell them. Yeah, you can totally take the course. It'll still be helpful for you, but you are going to eventually discover that you should have been on WordPress all along, and you're gonna have to go through navigating it all over, and that's what I had to do. And so I wish I would have listened when I started my blog, but I didn't, and I learned the hard way. Tip number 3 is to decide your goals up front. So I know a lot of bloggers who want to be hobby bloggers, and that is totally fine. But if you want it to turn into a career, I don't really know anyone who just accidentally became a career blogger unless they started like 15 years ago. I know lots of those who they just started it when blogging came out and they posted what they loved and then it morphed into a career. But most of the bloggers who start today, because I'm a recent blogger, really, I've really only been seriously blogging for about 4 years and full-time with my husband home for about 2.5 years. So about 2 years after I started, it was a full-time thing. And then my sister as well, she's been blogging for about 2.5 years very seriously, and hers already is a full-time income as well. But that does not happen accidentally. We both treated ours like a business from the beginning. Now you can not treat it like a business from the beginning, but it just will take longer. And so if that is what your ultimate goal is you are trying to either use a blog to promote a product you already have or to create a business that you don't yet have, I recommend setting that goal out in the beginning, and that way you know what you're working for. So if it's just a hobby, you're not going to be worried about being consistent or keyword research or anything like that because it's just a hobby. So I recommend to set that out from the very beginning. My fourth tip is to narrow your niche. Again, you don't have to figure this all out in the beginning, but keep in mind that over time you are going to want to carve out a group of people that you're talking to, that you're trying to reach. I have made the mistake before, and I still struggle with this, of wanting to please everyone, of thinking that if I could just get everyone to like what I'm doing, I won't alienate any people. But what you want to find, I'm going to talk about this in a different tip, is a core group of people that will be your people that want to always check back on your blog, who know exactly what you're about. You can be their go-to person on that thing, no matter what it is. Number 5, use seasonal prompts to get content ideas. I recommend in my course writing down 50 ideas from the very beginning, and if you can get there, it will lead to more and more. Sometimes the smallest, most insignificant seeming things actually do the best. Now keep in mind that you will have seasonal prompts. So people ask me, how do I come up with new content ideas? I usually am just flowing with the seasons. So whenever it is fall, I might be introducing a recipe that I did back in the spring, but with a fall ingredient, or a home tour, but with a fall spin. There's always ways that you can tweak ideas that you have to be new blog posts, but as long as you are able to come up with a core set of blog post ideas, it's a niche that is worth going forward with. Now, I will say that a lot of times people overthink blog post ideas too. I even am guilty of doing this. So I will sometimes start on something and think, who's going to read this? Who's going to want to read this? But I found that staying consistent and just posting those ideas, eventually someone somewhere comes to me and says, oh, I found you through your rag ball ornament tutorial that I thought nobody would care about. So don't overthink them, but just make sure that you have a good base of ideas that you could branch off from. And you'll be surprised at how small ideas sometimes do better than others. I find that some of my really complicated things that I'm like, oh, people are gonna love this. I did these certain special ingredients, or I did this sewing tutorial that took me days. A lot of times they want something more simple too, because they're trying to live their busy lives and they don't have time to do that thing. So know that your base of ideas don't have to be these grand, complicated things. They just have to help people in some way, even if it's just helping them figure out what's for dinner or how to do some quick hairstyle that you do. Number 6 is commit to a goal and stick with it. Stay consistent. For me, 2 posts a week has always been a magic number, and for my students, I find that that's enough to build momentum. It's enough to show people you're serious, to get people checking back to your blog regularly for new content. If you can't commit to some kind of consistent schedule, the blog won't work as a career. Even if it's once a week, that at least gives people an idea when they can check back. But I still recommend at least 2 posts a week. That's what I've always done. I've never done more. I've just always done 2, but consistently done that. And that's what has really produced the momentum. All right, number 7 is to focus on quality. There are really only a few things you need to set your blog apart from other people's blogs, and that is just slightly better quality. So for example, I'm not a photographer. I don't have any photography training, but I've learned over the last several years how to take photos better, and my skills continue to improve so that when people see my blog, they might think that the photos look professional. And it doesn't actually take a whole lot to get to that level. It just takes trial and error. But when I look back at my old blog posts again in the non-perfectionist thing, they don't look how I want them to, but it was all part of the learning process. So the key though is just to focus on quality. Focus on answering people's questions. If you're doing a brownie recipe, what are some of the questions that people might have? Like, for example, can I substitute something for eggs? What if I don't have this ingredient? Try to always think, how can I make this better? How can I give more information and make this a really great reader experience? Think about what you would want to see if you were reading that blog post, and always be proactive about creating better quality content with the information you provide, and then also the photos. Okay, number 8. If you have a small amount of time, so you're a stay-at-home mom, that's what I was when I built my blog up before Luke came home. I mean, I'm still a stay-at-home mom, but at least we can tag team things now. I didn't have much time. I had nap time, and then I had a few hours after bedtime before, I just wanted to relax and do whatever I wanted. I didn't have all these hours throughout the day to do things, so I really had to prioritize. So in the beginning of blogging, you're going to think, okay, I need to get on Instagram and post there at least once a day. I need to post 3 times a day to Facebook, and I need to post 20 times a day to Pinterest, and I need to learn SEO. Well, what I did when I was starting my blog is I just prioritized what was important right now. What can I focus on this week to move the needle, but what also can I neglect? And I'm still doing this to this day. I have a team of people helping me now that I've added to over the years, and I still have weeks where I'm like, you know what, I'm just not gonna worry about that this week. So the key is to not get overwhelmed. What can happen if you do that is you'll sit down at your computer for your 2 hours of designated time that you might have for the day, and just think, okay, I'm gonna go try a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and not actually move the needle in any place. When I built my different social channels and my blog, it was all because I focused on each one at a time. So for a while, I worked on Instagram, and I kind of just put the leftovers other places, and it grew. And then now it's in a maintenance mode, and it doesn't really grow that much. Then for a while, I put my focus on YouTube. I built up some momentum, and it grew like crazy for a while. But now, sorry, YouTube, it's not on maintenance mode, but it's not on the forefront of my mind at the moment. And so it still grows, but it's not getting the views and the growth that it was, but it's still growing because it had that original momentum that I built up. And for a while I focused on my Facebook, and it grew like crazy. I just can't put my brain, and neither can you, in too many places at one time and expect growth. So just prioritize and focus on one thing at a time. So if for a while all you're doing is building up a base of content up for your blog, that's what I did at first. I didn't even worry about social platforms. I just built up good content that could be searchable, and that's something that I continue to focus on while focusing on other places. So for a while, if your focus is to build traffic to your blog, focusing on creating great Pinterest graphics and searchable content for Google is a good place to put your time and attention, and not chase every little thing along the way. So for example, recently I added a podcast to my blog business. Just every one of these things is a way to drive traffic to your blog by growing a wider audience on different platforms. But the podcast was something I couldn't add any time before that because I just simply did not have the other things going like I wanted them to. But now that I have built momentum and a following on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, I felt like I could branch out over into podcast land. But remember, I've been almost blogging, almost in a few months, for 5 years. So it took me a long time to get to the point where it seemed like a good idea to add podcasting. So I was saying this on my podcast actually recently. Never compare your year 1 to someone else's year 10 or year 5, because it took them all of that time to get to that point. And if you're starting from scratch, you just need to focus on where you can and then move along through the stages as you can. So if you have 2 hours a day, but you really truly do work on that 2 hours every weekday, that's 10 hours a week, that's 500 hours a year, 520, that you have towards building your blog. Where do you think you could be after working on something for 520 hours? It just takes focus and dedication along the way. And quite frankly, most people aren't willing to stick it out for the long haul because it takes time to see results. And a lot of times people want results right away. So the key is to apply that consistent effort and focus that, quite frankly, most people aren't willing to do to help you to achieve that goal. Of course, this is all if you're wanting to be a career blogger. If you're wanting to be a hobby blogger, then you wouldn't need to apply the same level of serious consistency. Okay, number 9 is focus on your following even if it's small. So in the business world, you hear a lot of people throw around the phrase 1,000 true fans. If you have 1,000 true fans, you can make a living with blogging because you will have people who, no matter what you put out, they're going to read. No matter what video you put out, I know I have some of you on here. You will watch my sewing tutorials, my recipes, my blogging stuff. You might not even be interested in blogging. You might not even have a sewing machine or a sourdough starter, but you just want to watch me. And so you would be in my group of people who are my 1,000 true fans, and you're just there. You want to see what I'm doing. You've bought into the simple farmhouse lifestyle that I'm showing, and you're enjoying following along with that. And that's what you want to create. You want to create this group of people who want to see what you're doing. They want to read what you're writing. They want to try the recipes you're showing. You don't need 1 million followers to have a successful blog. You need to focus on who you do have. I have people sometimes who are like, oh, I just can't grow on Instagram. I'm like, but you have 1,000 people on there who have decided to follow along with you. Focus on them. What do they want to see from you? Okay, number 10, don't let the negativity stop you. I know a lot of people who don't want to start a blog because they're worried about what their friends and family are going to think. They're worried about people seeing them fail, about trying something and not seeing it through. They're also surprisingly worried about success. What if I do make it as a blogger and gain a bit of a following and people say negative things to me on the internet? And that is difficult because no matter what you do, you get those people. I have some of you right now who are watching this who are in your head trying to think of what I could say to her that would just cut her down and make her think her tips aren't good. There are always gonna be people like that. And I'm not talking about constructive criticism. That is always welcome. I'm sure most bloggers welcome that. But I'm talking about those mean people. And what I had to decide was I wasn't going to let other people who don't live in my house, who don't buy groceries for my kids, who have nothing to do with my life or my goals, I can't let them dictate what I try and what I do. Ultimately, that's just a good philosophy in life, to not worry about the negativity and don't let it stop you. Because again, a lot of people will let that stop them. A lot of people do let that stop them. And so it takes a certain level of thick skin, and I'm not saying I necessarily have it because negative comments still hurt, they do, but I am really glad that I didn't let it stop me, and the fear of negativity stopped me from pursuing the goals that I knew I and my husband together had set out for our family, because we had these goals, we had them together, and I didn't need to worry about what people outside of my little family thought of that and what they might say and how they might cut me down. Ultimately, it's just unhappy people who do that. And so I need to understand that and know that they're just dealing with something that makes them want to bring others down into their misery and not worry about it. So make sure to join me tomorrow night for my live blogging masterclass. I have it all lined up to where my mom's gonna have a few of the kids, my husband obviously is gonna have the rest. And so I'll be able to get on there uninterrupted for an hour, teach you my 4-step framework for how to start a blog, and then answer some of your questions live. This masterclass will be really helpful for you if you wanna start a blog. Even if you choose not to be a student of my blog course, Create Your Blog Dream, this masterclass does have my whole 4-step framework. So super valuable. Make sure to join me tomorrow night by going to farmhouseonboone.com/masterclass-registration. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I make 2 videos every week on food from scratch, natural living, a handmade home, and sometimes entrepreneurship. Rarely I pop in here with this, and I especially wanted to pop in right now for the 2-year celebration of my blog course releasing. So thank you so much for stopping by the farmhouse.